the tasting room just opening and whatnot. So the tasting rooms around here were able to open this past week. Gavin Newsom came through and said, you don't need to have food service, because there was a stipulation. The first ones could open when they had food service. So everybody was like, they had some people, putting up hot dogs, cooking up hot dogs in the parking lot and saying, okay, we're open because we can serve, hot dogs or whatnot. So it was pretty funny.
Corey, were there stipulations in terms of capacity in your tasting rooms?
Yeah, so actually, we could not do it inside. So it had to be outside in open air and by reservation only, seated tastings, people come in mass.
I don't mean to interrupt, guys, but I think it's actually time for us to go live now. So I'm going to go ahead and get started here.
Great.
Brett says not yet. Okay.
Live on Facebook, but let's give away some really cool, juicy secrets. Like, so we're saying, so they took away the food stipulation?
They did. They just recently did that. And then again, reservation and outside.
Right.
That's the big thing.
Yeah. So we got in the middle of a kind of interior cleaning / not remodel, but redecorating, reorganizing. And so it's worked out very well for us, but we're still kind of behind the curve on that. We're trying to get everything organized before we reopen. And so we're busy trying to get it done.
Do you have a date of when you're going to open?
No, we've been, Dad and I have been just very conservative. We're actually spiking here.
Are we going live, Rebecca?
We're apparently going live now on both pages. So I'm going to go ahead and get started now. So for all of you that have been listening to us maybe jibber jabber for a few minutes, hi. Welcome to another fabulous virtual tasting with Becker Vineyards. And tonight additionally, we have Francis Ford Coppola Winery with us here tonight. So tonight's wine that we're doing is a really fantastic blend and collaboration that we've done. And it's Becker Vineyards and Francis Ford Coppola Winery. And it's called the Unita blend. And it's a designated Cabernet Sauvignon. And tonight we're going to be trying that wine, tasting that. I hope you've got that swirling in your glass. And on the broadcast tonight, we have, of course, our winemaker, John Leahy. We also have Dr. Joe Becker. And then from Francis Ford Coppola Winery in California with us tonight, we have Corey Beck. So we've got all three of these people coming to you live tonight, and we're going to taste this fabulous wine. I hope you all enjoy it just as much as I have. Cheers, everyone.
Cheers, Rebecca. Thank you for that beautiful introduction. And I'm going to change things up a little bit tonight because we've got a lot of new audience members and new folks. And I really want to introduce Corey Beck, who's the CEO of Family Coppola and in charge of all the wonderful wines there. Corey, for our audience, would you mind giving us a little background? And then Joe and I are going to give a little highlight on ourselves so that we can introduce ourselves to the Coppola folks as well.
Oh, great, John. Thank you. Well, a little bit of history here. John and I used to work together a little bit back in, what year was that, John? The late 90s, early 90s?
Yeah, it was in the late 90s.
At Summers Winery in Calistoga. So I got to meet John a long time ago. And he's still the same. He hasn't changed, which is beautiful. I'm Corey.
For somebody who lives far away from him.
I say, hey.
That's quite funny. But yeah, no, I'm Corey Beck, the CEO of Francis Coppola Winery, and been here now 22 years. It really started off when we were a small little winery, and then we've kind of grown up, and we have this beautiful estate now out in Geyserville with the swimming pool, and we have now a new property up in Oregon. We have the Virginia Dare property just north of us, which was the old Geyser Peak. So the wine business is over the course of the years has grown, and we've grown with it.
Yeah, I also, didn't you start off as the assistant winemaker there at Inglenook?
Coppola.
Yeah, at Coppola. Yeah,
Yep.
I'm sorry, I know the old Inglenook property. I apologize, but
yeah, no, it's okay. It was a Niebaum Coppola at the time, and Francis some years ago came and bought the Inglenook name back from the wine group, and then brought the name back to the original property that was founded in the late 1800s.
Before we get going with my introduction and Joe's, the little story that pops in the back of my head, which I always thought this was like one of the most beautiful things that could have ever happened after Francis and his wife got done refurbing the property. They invited Robin Lale and up there because she grew up there and gave him a weekend and stuff. And I remember Robin talking about that and telling the story about that. And I thought that was just absolutely fantastic. And she said it was like one of the most magical weekends ever that, got to see that. So it just goes to show that family is family, no matter who you are. So,
that's correct.
okay, so for everybody at home and away and everywhere else, and welcome both pages, I guess, I would like to introduce Dr. Joe Becker, owner and proprietor of Becker Vineyards here in Stonewall, Texas. Joe, can you give us a little history about yourself and introduce yourself to everybody in California and point
you bet. So I'm a endocrinologist by training. My father and I practiced medicine together, but which is really I think my first love. But I've had the great luck of growing up in a winery family. It has been my as I've said many times before, there's so many wonderful aspects about what we do. There's, when I was younger and working in the fields or in the tasting room, it's extraordinarily hard work, but it's just so much fun, and you learn so much. And somebody that loves science and art as I do, it's an absolutely wonderful combination. And I have a chemistry degree, and so I love that aspect of it. Absolutely wonderful experience. And I did 2 years of fellowship in endocrinology in San Francisco and at UCSF. And actually, my wife and I would go out to Coppola at that time, and that was one of our favorite wineries. And but I think the other really amazing side about this is getting to the wonderful people you get to work together. And this collaboration with Coppola has brought us into, allowed us to meet some really wonderful people and really work together and collaborate. It's been an amazing experience working with Corey and his team.
Yeah, I agree. I will second that absolutely. And Brett, are you going to join in on this? Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm going to stay on just briefly because Joe had a power outage at his house in San Antonio. So I'll say hello, and then I'm going to ask Corey like one question, then I'm going to get off here so that you guys can talk. And
okay.
And I do find this collaboration like amazingly intriguing about how it all happened. But my name is Brett. I'm the general manager for Becker. You folks in California, we've spent a lot of time out there going back and forth and trying to find things that work in tasting rooms in California that we can bring home to Texas. And definitely the number one thing that we try to do is have quality wine. And I think that that's the reason why when these guys showed up and this collaboration kind of happened, it was kind of almost a no-brainer. But I do think that the difference between the growing regions of California and Texas is very unique. If you haven't been exposed to Texas wine in California, it's something that you need to check out. We don't want to hang our hat on the fact that we're from Texas. We want to hang our hat on the fact that we're trying to make world-class wine. And I'll leave it at that and let you guys talk and get off of this. But thanks, John.
Yeah, you bet. I'll come back to your question. I've got to introduce myself. So my name's John next. No, but and for those of you out there, I did work actually for Corey. I was working at Summers Winery when Corey was the winemaker there. And Corey may not remember this, but he's the one I asked, what is Charbonneau? Because we were the Charbonneau grape. I had been exposed to it only one time before Summers, did not know much about it. And we were punching down the Charbonneau bins when I kept picking his brain. And he's just like, for the love of God, do you never shut up? How much do you want to know about this grape? So anyway, so that's the team. And, to fairness to Brett's question, Corey, we're going to lead off with that. Why did you all want to do the collaboration? We'll start there. And then, yes, everybody is starting to ask about the wine. We'll get to it, I promise. But I want to give a little backstory, and I want Corey's input on this.
Yeah, so we were in 2018, I was on a survey, And for those of you that don't know, the survey is you go out to a market and you're looking to go to, the retailers to see your brand and how it's being displayed. So I chose to go to Texas because I love going there. We were in Houston primarily. And so we're visiting all these retailers, ATBs of the world and whatnot, and we're seeing our displays. But more importantly, I kept seeing the Becker displays, and the wines were everywhere. And I kept looking at the label, and I see that you all made a claret, right? And I had never tasted the claret that you made. And so it just so happens we're with the same wholesaler, RNDC. And I said, look, guys, I love the fact that we're doing this survey, but quite honestly, I wish I was Becker right now because they have more displays than we do. Like, what's it going to take? And so it just got me thinking. I'm like, well, if we were to do a collaboration, would Becker be somebody that, we should look at? And they all, hands down, said, Ken Rosenblum, you bet. Becker is, the utmost quality within Texas. And so then they brought up your name. I'm like, I remember, John. You kept asking me a lot of questions.
I remember, John, do I really want to do this?
But so they gave me, Dr. Becker's number, and I called them, and I just said, hey, would you be open to doing a collaboration? In my mind, I wanted to look at doing a claret, but obviously we were both grandfathered in. We can't do that now with the new label. That's why the claret we couldn't use that. So we chose on the Cabernet, and I flew out to visit you all in a beautiful, beautiful estate. I love that. Wasn't there obviously during the lavender, season, but it was stunningly beautiful. And more importantly, the people and then the wines were absolutely stellar. I love some of your own whites that you were doing as well. And it seemed like this natural fit with Cabernet.
Yeah.
As it all started with the claret conversation, but that's how it really started. It was just a phone call, and then all of a sudden we were able to get this project in the bottle in less than a year. And then even the people over at RNDC, they were amazed. They were, like Tom Cole. When I met with Tom Cole, he's like, "You were able to get this project done in under a year." So we were, and so hats off to you all for helping making it. We just so everybody knows, we selected some Cabernets from some of our vineyards here in California. We shipped them out to John, and John was the master blender. I mean, he put all this together, and he made, what we taste in the bottle here today. So.
Well, the team that I got to work with on your side too. So a couple of gentlemen and ladies that I got to call and work with, your winemakers and stuff. In all fairness, the reason it got done so fast, the first thing I would say is, Corey Beck said to broker no nonsense from you. No. I figured, scare him a little bit, right? Speaking of which, just so you know that you still owe me a DVD copy of Twix.
I know.
Yeah.
I haven't forgotten. I haven't forgotten.
So Joe, would you lead us off in the tasting, and then we're going to come back to Corey. We're going to get do you have a little bit of wine with you, Corey?
Just a little, but I just want to say one thing, because it's interesting to me, because we've, when you go to the grocery stores, I think our claret and your claret are really the only two major ones that are there. And
yep.
You guys have made, how many years have you guys been making the claret?
We're on our 25th anniversary of it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I also like a fair number of those wines, the director's cut. That's the one with the spiral label.
Yes. Very easy label to put on.
Yeah, I can imagine.
It was really fun to taste through those samples you sent to us and to put this wine together. And this wine has a lot of my brother and I were talking about earlier. This wine has a lot of nice kind of dark fruit notes in it that might pair with a certain sauce that Al Pacino learns how to make in The First Godfather. Just to throw that out there.
Yep.
Can't help myself.
Yeah.
I was told not to make movie references. I had a whole passel of them.
John, that was to you and to you alone. Okay. Yes. Joe's good.
But I mean, I think that this, I think that the cab that you all sent us was very, very dark and very rich, and I think it blends very well with the cab that we've made here in Texas. And I almost get kind of a blackberry,
Yes.
dark note to it.
Yeah, good. So Corey, what are some of your impressions on this wine and then we're going to get into the label, guys, because there's some really interesting things behind the label that I want to point out to everybody.
So what we did was we actually went through, and 17 was the year for us for the fires, right?
Mhm.
And so
Right.
the good news for the majority of our industry, it was a very early harvest. So we had 84% of our fruit picked before fires, came about.
Right.
So what we did as the direction we came back and looking with, Claret was in the spirit of Claret, we took our best Cabernet lots that go into Claret, and that's what we sent you. So we've got few from Sonoma, a few from El Dorado, and we looked, and Joe, you hit it right on the head for that dark fruit and that, blackberry, as you said, blueberry characteristics, but really dark intensity. And John, I think you all, looked at the same kind of list on your end, and that's what we ended up with.
We did. And just because we're getting into this and people are getting curious about the blend. So of the blend, it's 78% Cabernet, 9% Merlot, 8% Cab Franc, and 5% Petit Verdot. Of that, it is literally an equal split, 50-50 California and Texas. The Coppola end of the spectrum was 45% of the Coppola wine is Cabernet and 5% is Petit Verdot. That's the 50. They're 50%. Our 50% comprises of Cabernet, Cab Franc, and of course Merlot. So the Petit Verdot is all yours, and that's the note I want to direct towards right now, because that Petit Verdot has got a nice anchor to it. Petit Verdot to me, always, the second I taste it by itself, the very first impression I get is almost slippery, because the pH tends to be slightly higher. But where did that Petit Verdot come from? Do you remember, Corey, where that came from?
Yeah, that's a portion of our El Dorado vineyard that we get from up there. So very warm, ripe, rich, dark. Yep.
Yeah, some of the best Barbera I've had was from up around that area. It's an incredible area for fruit. Also, so everybody knows, here in Texas and El Dorado in the eastern side of California, it's very hot, just like Texas. And the first time I came to the hill country, I literally looked around and thought, wow, this really reminds me of the foothills. So as far as the same types of trees, same types of grass, it was really interesting.
Well, I just want to make a point. What's interesting to me too is, 2017 for us was the year that Hurricane Harvey, as we've mentioned many times on this before, but Hurricane Harvey collided with that cold front over Austin, and it of course went out and recharged over the Gulf, and unfortunately decimated Houston. But it did push a big high pressure out over the high plains and left for a very cool, long growing season.
It did.
And I think the notes that you get from that complement what you're getting from El Dorado as well.
Yeah, the thing about the front and the low pressure, for such a low pressure over Houston, and keeping the high plains in that nice elongated ripening time. So Corey, we're constantly battling early rains in late September, early October, with the fall rains for us. And that's the thing we chase our tail around with, especially with Cab Franc, Mourvèdre, and Petit Verdot, some of those, and some Carignans from up there. Those are the things we worry about the most at that time of the year. So we were able to extend that maturation time. Brilliant. Never went below 60 degrees overnight that whole month. But it never got really too hot either, just some good intense sunlight. That Cab Franc was the first time that the pyrazines really started to mature. You started getting a more dark notes out of it instead of the more acrid grassy notes that can be in there. That bell pepper started to mature, and we started seeing some more deeper notes from that. And that's why we chose that little bit in there. It was absolutely wonderful.
Yeah, no, it's beautiful.
Yeah. So the label. So we had nothing to do with the label other than yes and no. We loved the concept your marketing people sent us, regardless of the argument about pixels and colors and things that people tend to discuss back and forth intensely. Can you give us a little background? Why the name, first of all? Why the name?
So, the name, that's a good question. So just so everybody's aware, on your side of in Texas, in your Facebook page, Francis is very involved in every single label that we do. And so Francis and his team put this together. I gave him a description of how it all came about. I gave him the description of you all, the place, everything that I visited, and this is the label that we came up with. And so it really is it's a rendition. The name Unita or Unita, there's different ways to pronounce it, but it's basically unite, right? And I think that was, for us, and we still have that theme as an industry and as a winery within ours. We think that the power of a brand can also be lifted by bringing on others, just as we did you and you did us. And so more exposure. I think that the wine business, we need to continue to draw in our customers and be creative. And this is a way to do it. We have to continue to get the younger generation drinking wine and falling in love with wine. And so the more that we can be creative and just get away from, making our single vineyard because we've done it for 100 years, we have to be creative. The label really depicts California and Texas with you can see you have the bear, you have the star on yours. Of course, we have the bear, but we also have the star on our flag as well.
Right.
Which, do you know where the star from our flag came from?
Where?
John?
Hey.
You don't know.
Do you know how long it's been since I was in 5th grade?
No, I know, but it actually it was paying homage to the Rangers of Texas.
Right. Yep.
And so that was part of it.
General Vallejo was appointed governor of California by General Santa Anna. So we had a little fracas here in Texas with him over some land. Actually, it was much deeper than that. We won't go into that, but the interesting part to me has always been the co-history between Tejas and California.
Yep.
And how, as part of Mexico and part of that empire, that there's some of the same players straight across the board.
And I think I appreciate those words, Corey. And I think that we have always felt that when you come out to the winery, when you meet us, when you meet our brand, we want you to feel like you're part of our family. We want you to feel like we're your winemaker. And so, we have always had that same thought in mind with our labels. We want people to have the whole experience of what went into the wine, the creation, and in this case, the working together. And you couldn't have said it better.
So what was funny about that, this last fall, I was walking through the tasting room, and there was a couple, and they had Becker Vineyard shirts on at our tasting room. And so, oh my gosh, we start chatting, and it just, to make a long story short, they're like, well, this is why we're here. We came out and planned our vacation to go to wine country, and we're members of the Becker, wine club. And we came out, we've tasted the wine, we love it, but we wanted to see your winery as well. And it's like, that made my week, to say the least. And that's awesome. Your point, Joe, what this whole collaboration was about. And it was really pretty amazing.
So back to this beautiful label. Why the color?
So it's supposed to be, if you look at it and you glance at it up close, it really is supposed to be leather, right? Yeah. It's supposed to have a leather look to it, so that's the color. That's why it looks the way that it does. So yes, it's all about leather.
And then the final question about that, not the final question, but one that I want to know. So have you all done collaborations with other wineries before this?
You're our first one.
Okay, so because this is the first time we've done a collaboration as well. We were talking about that right before we went live, before you joined the group, because I'm like, I think this is the first time we've ever done it, and I don't know if
It was ours. Yep.
yeah, if Coppola's done it before. So it was absolutely fantastic as far as I'm concerned. Really very much enjoyed being able to blend it. And to be honest with you, I very much enjoyed the absolutely undeserved VIP treatment I got when I went to the tasting room that next year and stuff. And I still couldn't figure out how to steal one of those little the ships that they used in one of the films. They're the
Marie Antoinette.
Yeah, Marie Antoinette. And I just didn't want the entire Coppola crew screaming and chasing after me. But if I could have stolen that, I would have.
That might have sparked a little attention for you.
Yeah, you think?
That out. Yeah. Thank you for not doing that.
Also a little too big to actually carry.
Exactly. Exactly.
So, okay. So back to the wine. Any of the wine on your end, did it see any barrel age, or was this all tank aged from the 17 harvest?
No, we had quite a bit of it as barrel aged. Yeah, because we had some of our best claret stuff gets a portion of barrels. Obviously, we do staves and tanks as well, but we keep every vineyard separate. We have over 250 growers that we work with, and we do grower feedback tastings on all of them. So we like to keep it separate so that we can let them know their performance for the year.
Right. Right.
Are you predominantly using American oak for this, or when you do your claret?
No, we use a lot of our used and new French oak barrels.
Okay.
We do a little bit of American oak. The American oak we use is oftentimes designated for Zinfandel. It kind of gives a nice character to that, but this is predominantly French oak.
Okay.
So how many, just without naming them, but how many different Coopers do you all deal with?
We now are 10.
10
10
Coopers?
Coopers. Yep. I mean, it seems like, you wake up one day and all of a sudden, it's like, wow, we have 55 Coopers that we're working with, and it's more than some of the growers that we have. And so we want to pare it down and just work with, and be consistent. The more
Don't you think a winemaker should have access to really good barrels to make the best wine?
No.
Is that a loaded question, John?
John, have you bought your house yet?
Yeah, right. Exactly. So we have barrel discussions every year, Corey.
Yep.
And they usually start off with, it's just a few more than we bought last year. But,
how long do you keep your barrels for?
6 years.
That's good.
5 to 6 years. If I can keep them sweet and they don't go punky on me, then we keep them. But there's always a few that when I'm laying out the lots and going through and smelling and tasting, and before we blend, we pick out. Rachel and I will go through it, and then I'll work with the cellar master as well, and we'll see what's going on with them. But yeah, generally speaking, I started saving a lot more barrels for more neutral because I'm not enamored with a heavy amount of oak. I had the whole Napa double oak. Put it in barrel, brand new barrel for the first year, and then another brand new barrel for the next year. That was one end of the spectrum, and then all neutral on the other end. But there's a really super cool little winemaker in the Dry Creek Valley, just a tiny winery behind the Dry Creek store, without giving away the name. On
Gallo?
No, next door to Gallo. Yeah, Gina bought that. They bought that store to save it. Because everybody in that area grew up going to that store.
Oh yeah.
But no, he's been there for 50 years. His dad started the place. He's there now. But he does a Valdegay up there, and he barrel ages it in 10-year-old barrels. But he barrel ages it for like 4 years.
Oh wow. Yeah,
and so I got in a discussion about neutral oak with him and with some other people, and it was like, I'm going to start saving more and more neutral oak as I go through. And I over the years have found that with American oak, I really like American oak, some American oak on Tempranillo and Merlot. I love it on Zinfandel. I do not care for it that much on Cabernet if it's brand new American oak. Neutral's fine. But
So Joe, the longer that he can keep those neutral barrels, you know what that means? The less new ones he has to buy every year.
That's right.
No, Corey, come on, buddy.
I know.
You've got the fiduciary duties of CEO, but the problem is the longer I keep those barrels, the more warehouse space I need.
That's true.
It's a trade-off.
So, okay. what was the outcome that you were looking for with this collaboration? And I won't ask if we fulfilled it, but what was when you first thought of this, what was the driving goal?
So the driving goal was to continue to bring brand recognition for our label within Texas. I mean, I realize I don't think you guys do much outside of Texas, right? Don't you sell most of the wine?
No, we do almost all in Texas.
In
We have a wine
Texas.
club and we ship when people order online, but we're not distributed outside of Texas. And I love the fact that you mentioned RNDC, and I think we should all raise our glasses to Alan Dreeben. He's done a great job building that company, but he's also another family person that likes his relationships. So
And also basically our head of sales, David Bryce, who helped put together a lot of those displays that you saw.
He did. I realized the one thing I realized with David said, look, I'm scheduled, we have a chat for half an hour. And I realized that half hour needs to be 2 hours. And that I learned quickly. You know?
We had a sales meeting years ago, right before our Christmas party. It started the sales meeting started at 2:00 and we were late for the 6:30 cocktail hour at the Christmas party. Yeah. It was just like, the next year, the funniest part is Dr. Becker told David, we're starting a half an hour before the Christmas party and I'm leaving at 6:30.
That was it. Yeah.
It's kind of funny. Yeah.
But no, to answer your question, I mean, I looked at it from many different aspects of it. Is that okay? Collaboration, we like. I want to do that more. Also, to looking at giving the wholesaler, we share the same wholesaler, something new and something that they were also part of. I mean, I was on this ride with Ken, and he's like, "This is an amazing idea." He gave me the number of Dr. Becker right in one of the stores, and so. I felt like they were also part of it. And a lot of times if you can get the wholesaler on board, early through this process, which was great. And then again, exposing both of our wineries to a larger audience, right?
Yes.
Tapping into our audience, your audience. Some of the best things going on in the music industry today is collaboration with artists, right? And it's all, I mean, you look at a typical album these days, and out of the 10 songs, half of them have artists coming on and with collaboration. So I think I viewed a lot of it at what's going on in the music world and opening our eyes up and saying, we need to reach more people, bottom line, and make great wine and do it with people that we like and respect.
So one more time for everybody at home, everybody swirl, sniff, and taste. That includes you, Corey.
Now I feel like I work for you.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Is I like to revisit the wine after it's been open for a while and talk about it, because the important part for these chats, these live streaming, not just the virtual tasting, but it's to allow people time to ask some questions, which we've had a few, but then also to walk people through basically what we do, what we take for granted every day, the samples in front of you, the barrels, things like that. And you never went into, when you talked about your background, Corey, because that you're practically, you were born in a vineyard, I think, but you were raised in a vineyard. This has been in your blood for a long time. And what was the varietal that your grandfather grew, and for whom?
So yeah, my grandfather was the vineyard manager at Chateau Montelena, and he sourced all of the 1973 Chardonnay that won the Paris tasting in '76.
Wow.
So, he was there for 20 years and planted the vineyard, did everything for Jim Barrett.
Right. And then didn't part of that also come from the Bacigalupe vineyard over in, yeah.
In fact, on the label, it says Alexander Valley - Napa. And it was before labeling laws, so you could do sub-AVAs.
Right.
And before my grandfather passed away, he gave me his last bottle. So I actually have a bottle in my cellar. So,
oh, that's sweet.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Pretty
I
special.
actually got to meet Helen, and when I bought some Zinfandel from her years ago, and she has all those at the home front. She pointed out the Chardonnay, the on the Bacigalupe property, but she was pistol. Yeah, I absolutely you had to be on your toes. She brokered no nonsense. So, but yeah, I always thought that story about your granddad was absolutely fantastic. That, and I'm sorry to geek out a little bit here, people, but the movie Bottle Shock Yes, I love movies. No, I'm not just fanboying over Francis Ford Coppola's movies, but the movie Bottle Shock and being able to see it in St. Helena in the movie theater there, and then hearing some of the people that were represented in the movie were in the theater, and the comments going through that theater were hysterically funny.
Oh, it must have been epic.
Yeah, yeah. So it really was kind of like to me, it was a very hometown nostalgic moment.
It was. Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to get everybody's, there's a question here, Corey, from one of our viewers here in Texas. Corey, can you tell us what it's like to work for Francis? Because everybody's enamored with, with that, but, and I'm sure it's probably day to day for you.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So I can say it in 3 words: quality, authenticity, and pleasure. And that is our mission statement. And so everything that we do comes from this creative, authentic side of things. And Francis is, when he has something in his mind and he wants to do something, it doesn't matter if it's been done before, but it's about being unique and this authenticity. And so that really is who he is and who we are.
Did he get to actually drill through that tunnel this last year? The new cave?
Close.
Yeah.
It's close. It's
It's
not
close.
done yet.
Okay, because he's supposed to break that wall. I thought
Yeah.
that was awesome. It doesn't matter how old guys get; they still want to get on the big toys.
Yeah, there's yeah, that's true. So
I was
that
looking
answered
at
the
you thinking, I wonder if I could start that up. Yeah. So I want everybody's now asking for the food pairings. So it is it's an expected little portion of our wine tasting. So start with you, Joe. Corey, I'm being nice. I'm going to give you 30 seconds to figure out a food pairing for the wine.
thank you.
I actually think that this would be, the way this wine has really opened up, and I regret that I didn't decant it, because I think it just, it would be amazing to decant for now, and I think it would be absolutely wonderful. Rubbing it in. Thank you.
There you go, John.
I think it would be, I think there's a number of things you could do, but I think it would be absolutely wonderful with the right pork, with the right sort of darker pork glaze. I think you could easily do this wine with a wonderful steak here in Texas. So kind of easy things.
So Corey, what would you pair this wine with?
So that's a great question. And it's funny that knowing that we were having this, I actually this last weekend brought